Hi, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
This is, this is not the Bible Reloaded.
Science is interesting, and if you don't agree, you can fuck off.
Still got that interference. It's not as bad, but it's still there.
I've no problem with the spiritual beliefs of other fuckers, while those beliefs don't impact on the happiness of others.
Something's gone wrong with your microphone, and you sound like C-3PO during orgasm.
And admire the man who said, yes, I'll gut my kid to show my love of God. I'd say, no, fuck you.
And we have to be able to criticize bad ideas. Islam
but why
is the motherlode of bad ideas.
So if I offend some of you, I don't mean to offend you personally. I may offend some of your ideas, but that doesn't bother me at all.
We're with Watchtower and Awakening's first ever podcast guest in the form of Religious Tourist, or I probably refer to him as RT or Religious Tourist. Oh, sorry, Religious T, should I say? Are you alright, RT?
I'm very well, you?
Yeah, great. How's life?
Yeah, it's alright. Yeah, it's quite good. Yeah, how about yourself? How's life treating you?
Oh, wonderful. Since Christmas, the New Year's resolution, or rather for January, I became a vegan. So I'm taking part in Veganuary. So yeah. I've had no meat, eggs, cheese, no animal-based products of any sort for maybe 17 days now. Is it? I think it is.
It's easier than you think, isn't it?
Are you a vegan?
I was.
You was?
I'm a vegetarian now. I've spent my life mainly as a vegetarian, which is just the most ridiculous standpoint you can go from. It's like, I really, disagree with how animals are treated. But God, I like cheese. So, I'm willing to move past that.
I think I was the same. I've been asked a few times, and my thing is, I definitely miss cheese more than I miss meat. And I can't really have a pizza because people say, well, just have a pizza without cheese. And I'm like, no. And then people tell me about vegan cheese, but it's just not the same.
I've got a friend who doesn't like cheese, and he has pizza without cheese on. It's disgusting, isn't it?
I have a friend that claims he doesn't like cheese, but he will willingly eat your pizza. Okay, so for the listeners, RT, would you do us a favour and just briefly explain sort of what you're all about? You're off of Twitter, but what makes you the Religious Tourist? What are you all about?
I'm really out of date now. I mean, I would have been more interested about a year ago.
Yeah, I've only had the podcast for just under a year, I think it is now. So this is actually the 12th episode. So yeah, it's been a year. Happy birthday!
I don't need your excuses.
Sorry,
just over a year ago, maybe a bit less, maybe just under a year. I spent 12 years of my life, 12 months. 12 years was a bit ambitious. 12 months of my life joining different religions, and so I spent a month. Sometimes a bit longer, depending if I enjoyed my time there. Just immersing myself, meeting people, trying to follow it as closely as possible, investigating different viewpoints within that religion, and and writing a blog about it.
I find it quite fascinating because it's something that I'd kind of like to do, but I just don't know if I could give up my time. When you did this, you're obviously still working and things, aren't you? While this is happening,
yeah.
So you're trying to squeeze everything in between, also working. So I presume if you had to go to a mosque or synagogue or church or Kingdom Hall, whatever it is that you went to, during the course of that month. How did that work? It's quite a difficult thing. And then when you were at work, how did you explain this to your co-workers?
Well, the mosque was the hardest, but luckily I live in quite a multicultural area, so you can have churches right across the road from mosques, and you're never too far from a place of Islamic worship. So it's that was slightly easier. Plus, the place I work has a prayer room, which is very handy. But I was really embarrassed because I've been quite a vocal atheist for a number of years, maybe 5 years leading up to this. So to suddenly have me walking into a prayer room 3 times a day, at home in the morning and then mosque in the evening, I thought it might be quite embarrassing. So I went to the disabled toilet and just locked myself in. for 5 minutes while I did the prayers.
Do you think that would be considered blasphemous by some? You're praying in a toilet as opposed to a prayer room. Is there some law against that?
I didn't read one, but I took my cue from. I work in a college, and I take my cue from the students there, and we had to put out a memo to all teachers to remind students who were Muslim not to wash their feet in the toilets before they went into the prayer room because they couldn't get their legs into the sink due to, not being yoga enthusiasts. So the closest they could do was put their feet in the toilets and just press flush, and that was them washing their feet. So, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me.
Wow, I feel like that almost seems insulting, doesn't it? I think, I'm sure like some people would have a problem with that.
Well,
but I guess if there's no actual, there's no like scriptural content for being against that, why not?
Exactly, they didn't have the flush lavatory back in the 1400 years ago, so
or indeed a lavatory at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when you said that you felt a little bit embarrassed, so did you ever actually make it into the prayer room? And when you did you have to learn the actual prayer, or did you do like a quiet sort of time, or did you learn the correct way to pray and what to say and when?
I learnt the correct prayer and what to say and when, but I had that just at the mosque. When I went during the daytime, obviously when I did it, it was during the summer, so we didn't actually have that many students there. There was a few around, but so I could nip out for 40 minutes just to the mosque. And the daytime ones were a lot less kind of ritual. They were more people sitting around in kind of individual contemplation, really. So I took a cue from that. I don't know if that's the exact way, but it's the way I kind of learned. But then at the end, that was when you were breaking the fast, and that was when people went for the whole song and dance, the whole Macarena joining together. So that's the kind of way I did it. So I did a proper prayer in the morning, 3 prayers were just kind of by myself, having a good old think and a chin wag with Allah, and then a proper one at night.
I think some people would appreciate your efforts, but also think that it was disingenuous, being that you already didn't believe in God. I think a lot of people would have a problem in the fact that they would want you to sort of already believe in order to pray. Like the prayer will fall on deaf ears if you don't believe in the God in the first place. So did you get anything? Did you have that said to you at all? Was it kind of like, what is the point if you don't believe?
Yeah, actually, this was quite a point of contention when I first started. Obviously, it was fairly big news locally from a city where a cat stuck up the tree is the most important thing that happened. So to hear that someone was doing something like this was point of was kind of there was a newspaper article in it. So someone did an article, and then in the comments underneath there was someone who left about 3 comments just saying that exact thing, that faith isn't about the outward. Religion is about the outward kind of rituals. It's about what you feel inside. And a few people got back just saying, well, actually, how many times do we say that people need to look more into religion? And here is someone who's genuinely doing it, and there you are criticizing him. So yeah, I can see it in both ways.
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
But one of the things that I was quite interested to look into was, does faith come from the rituals that you do? So, if you teach a child all the rituals and say this is what it means, does that kind of lead to belief, or does belief kind of influence the ritual? So with that belief, does that mean that rituals mean more? So I think you can kind of look at it from both ways. I don't necessarily see it as a criticism, but I can definitely understand why people would suggest that.
Yeah, it seems like it's like one of those. I can't remember. Maybe you can help me out because the name of the guy escapes me. But the whole God. I'm sure God would expect honest unbelief. But what is the point in just making the right reparations and doing the right things? According to the religion, and then. What's the worst that can happen? If you've done everything right, at least you'll get to heaven. But it's just a silly argument, isn't it? Because if you don't believe, but you do all the things that you're expected to do, and yet you still don't believe, you're just kind of you're just wagering on the fact that God will accept you with dishonesty, almost.
Yeah. I think that it's kind of echoes Pascal's wager, doesn't it? That I'd rather take the risk of believing than the risk of not believing. Yeah, and then the argument to that is, well, what kind of knowing God? But also, my favourite argument to that was Homer Simpson, when he said that, imagine if we do have a wrong God, and every time we go to church, we're just making him angrier and angrier and angrier. You've got real hardcore Christians and hardcore Muslims who believe it fervently, but what if they're wrong? At least I've had a go at all of them.
You're right, and then that leads us straight back into the it leads us straight back into when someone has spent all their life with one particular God. I'm thinking of like, quite close-minded kind of Bible Belt Christian sort of folk.
Yeah.
And the only God they've ever even really been introduced to is the God of their sort of, their culture. So anyone else's God, they've never thought twice about it. And if that God is getting angrier and angrier, they haven't even looked into it, because their in-group, out-group mentality just means that, well, that God's obviously wrong because I've never contemplated him. But once they realise what they think about Allah, they'll realise what I think about their particular version of Yahweh.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway.
So I've won.
You're right. You've tried them all, and it turns out it's all shit. Am I right? Okay, so specifically, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So, gun against your head. You're not allowed to pick being a Jedi, because I think that's a bit too easy for you. Gun against your head. If you had to convert to one, which would you choose and why?
Who's putting a gun to my head?
Let's pretend it's me.
Fucking hell. This has turned sour.
Okay, let's pretend it's a theist. They've decided. No, that doesn't work. So that's like Russian roulette. You have to pick the right God that the theist is thinking of with the gun in his hand.
This isn't what I expected.
I apologise. Okay, let's not say gun against your head. Let's say if you were going to choose one because you felt like you desperately needed a religion for tax evasion. Let's say.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like that one. Paganism by far, by miles. Oh, not by miles. It's between paganism and Satanism, I think. And I don't know if that's just because it contrasted so heavily with Islam. And obviously I did Islam during Ramadan. And if anyone's ever tried Ramadan, it's the worst thing you could ever go through. I would pick a vasectomy over Ramadan.
Really? Why?
Any day of the week. My particular time, obviously it changes to do with the stars and the moon and the sun or whatever. I forgot why. This was a long time ago. I always do this. I try and act really knowledgeable on that and just think, oh shit, I don't even know.
Read your own blog.
Can you edit this? Can you edit someone else saying exactly why Ramadan falls when it does?
Yeah, I'll type it out and then it'll come on and be like, Ramadan, like a
do it in Stephen Hawking's voice.
Why do the dates of Ramadan change each year? The exact dates of Ramadan change every year because Islam uses a lunar calendar, which means that each month begins with the sighting of a new moon. Because lunar months are shorter than the solar months used elsewhere, Islamic holidays begin on different days each year. The start of Ramadan comes around 11 days earlier each year according to the Western Gregorian calendar, and consequently is not associated with any particular Western month. For Muslims living in Britain, the fast may therefore be comparatively short if Ramadan falls during the winter months, or much longer if it occurs during the summer.
So, yeah, it falls differently, but the time I had it was just the hottest summer and the most daylight ever, so there's about 16, 17 hours of blistering sunlight over the day, so there's no eating, there's no drinking, it's praying 5 times a day, so it's not even like you can just hibernate. And it's hard, so I think the first few days, sun up was about 4:30, 5. So I was having to get up at 4. I'm not a big eater at all. I don't eat a lot very often, but knowing that you can't eat for another 16 hours means that I'm going to have to try. So the first day, I remember making 2 full bowls of porridge, having 2 bananas, anything that I know is like a slow burn and energy. Just trying to force feed. I got halfway down a bowl of porridge and just thought, I actually can't eat anymore. That's me done.
That's you done for 17 hours? 17
hours. I actually had an interview 3 days into Ramadan for a different job. I was kind of looking to move jobs at the time, and I was quite excited for it. I had to. It was it wasn't the hardest interview, but I told it to my friend who works as an OT. I told him kind of what had happened, but having to do a presentation also along the lines of having to answer questions, and I was so kind of starved of any kind of nutrients or energy that I knew where the words were, I could see them, but it was almost like I couldn't grab them to get them out. So I don't know what I said during the interview, but it was tantamount to bollocks. I met the person after, and I think she thought I suffered from some kind of autism or something like that. because it was just rambling nonsense. And I said it to my friend, and she said, that's the symptoms you have when you've had a stroke. It's just the exact thing I said. That is. So for a while I was afraid I had a stroke.
So did you get the job based on that?
Nope. I didn't get the job. I missed out on that. So, thanks, Islam. If there's any evidence that Allah doesn't exist, that would be it.
Yeah, that's like, thanks, Obama, isn't it? Like, just blame Islam for that. Thanks, Islam.
Benghazi, hashtag.
Yeah. So, I'm guessing, are you still there?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm guessing then, so, for tax evasion, if you had to choose a religion, it's not going to be Islam because you don't want to do the Ramadan thing.
No.
So which one would you choose between the Satanism and, what was the other one?
Paganism.
And paganism. Which one would you choose out of those two?
I think if I had to, if I was a bit more cutthroat, and I think Satanism would definitely help me work in the business world. I think I could. Have you seen the Martin Scorsese film Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah, I have.
I think if I was a Satanist, I could be him.
Excellent. Just to clarify for any listeners that haven't looked into this, just explain to me what Satanism is, because most people hear the word Satanism and they think that means that you have to sort of sacrifice babies to Satan, and you believe in like a deity of Satan but not God or something.
It's essentially just having sex with goats.
Moving on.
No, it's quite interesting. I thought that as well. In fact, I mean, one of the things was that I'd had no understanding of any religions before I'd started. So the first one I did was Christianity, because at least it was the one that I'd had some kind of cultural understanding of. I was raised an atheist, or in other words, I was raised without religion. Mm-hmm. So when I was speaking to an amazing pastor when I first started, he did a church called the Church of the Black Gates, and it was incredible. And it was almost like a Christianity, but he used to be in a heavy metal band and used to tour, like quite a well-known band. So he just, it was just a lot more relaxed version of it. And obviously he was a lot more worldly than any of the other Christians I'd spoke to. So when I told him religions, I kind of dropped Satanism in to see if I could get a reaction. He just went, theistic or non-theistic? And I had no idea what he meant, so I just went, a bit of both.
Brilliant. So you thought you better look into it?
Yeah, I thought about it. Yeah, that's one I've got to look into. But theistic one is not really practiced by anyone, and that does mean that you worship Satan as almost like a fallen angel, almost like the antithesis of Christianity, and it's really not practiced very much at all. I mean, you'll find some people in American sitcoms American things like Buffy and Charmed and stuff like that, where they that's the Satanism they put forward. But really, the majority of it is based on a philosophy created by Anton LaVey, which is definitely a more look into our kind of actual biological lives. So it kind of looks at the 7 deadly sins of Christianity and suggests that actually they're not really sins. You can't really say lust is a sin, because how else do we procreate? How else do we find our partners? If we can't lust, then we can't interact with the opposite sex or the same sex, however you want to do it. If there is no greed, then you'll never achieve anything. The reason that we achieve stuff is because we have greed for something else. So it's just a different kind of way of looking at it, like a personal philosophy based on that. And the other part I looked into was a chap called Lee Banks, the Church of Rational Satanism, which looked a little bit more at the psychological premises of Satanism. So it said, fine, what LaVey did was fine, but it's probably a little bit out of date now. What we can kind of do is look at how we implement that in a real world. So one of the things I really tried to do, and I'm not very good at it, was you try and manipulate people without them knowing psychologically.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant.
Is that like the neuro-linguistic programming, things like that?
Yeah. It's fantastic. So you, but just leading them down the path that you always wanted to, but making it sound like it was their idea. It's great. It was great fun. I did it about twice and then felt really bad about it.
So that sounds like Satanism bleeds into Jediism, doesn't it? Like, to be a Jedi, like if you're very good at Satanism and you can do your neurolinguistic programming and things like that, it's effectively, these aren't the droids you're looking for.
I was going to say, when I was a pagan, we went to something called the Nine Ladies, which is close to where we are, and it's these 9 stones that were essentially created from witches, is how it goes, that they were banished from the land into the world of stones, and they were in a circle, and it's another stone circle, really quite a small one. But near it is a pub called the Druids, and so when me and my wife were walking past, I managed to do the greatest pun ever. This is not the druid you were looking for. I was really happy with that. She was happy. There was a round of applause, and that's why we're so happy together. I think. Puns. Some
people are just mad for each other, aren't they?
Yeah.
Fair play to you, Mrs. T.
She was very happy. She still talks about it now.
I'm so pleased for you.
Yeah.
You've given me hope.
Yeah, it's true. So Satanism was good, although I probably couldn't carry it out. But paganism was, it's just a really beautiful philosophy. It kind of forces you to relook at nature. So one of the first thing I did as part of it, we went to the Green Man Festival, and which is a music festival in Brecon Beacons in Wales. And it's just the most lovely people trying to connect themselves to nature in whatever kind of way that can be. My favourite example was they had like a healing centre of the Green Man Festival. So it's a really big music festival, so I don't know what kind of music you're into, but it gets pretty big headliners, like Beirut and Neutral Milk Hotel and Bon Iver and pretty big stuff. And they've got this healing section, and me and my friend were walking past, and for about 10-15 minutes we stared at disbelief as this person enjoyed a gong bath.
Which consists of
lying down and having 2 people walk around you, lightly hitting a gong. And it's about 30 quid.
It's £30.
£30. But, and this is my favourite thing, obviously they're trying to say that, the vibration of the gong can relax you or reconnect you with nature or stuff like that. But my favourite thing is, if you want to do that at home, they had it on CD. So you could buy it for 15 quid, take it home, and just have the sound of gongs playing for an hour.
That doesn't really make sense, though, because everything that I've ever seen or heard about sound healing or sound meditation, people always insist that it's actually like a live experience isn't the same as having it through your speakers.
Absolutely.
So like the resonating sound. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to go and see a live orchestra, would there? No. The resonating sound is supposed to be what actually sort of does it for you. In their words, I mean, it doesn't. I'm not saying it really matters to me, but in their words, they seem to say it's if you're near the gongs, you can sort of feel the vibes, but like a stereo vibe isn't the same vibe as like sound healing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to mind about that, but it was just really so obvious. It was a guy in a long white flowing, almost like tunic, long grey matted hair, really long beard, and you can tell he was just the coolest person ever. And the woman who was with him was just this 25-year-old, just obviously stunningly beautiful person. But we got eye contact with her, and her eyes said, "Yeah, I know it's bollocks."
Is it like a scene from The Wicker Man? She's giving you the eyes that say, "I know this is bollocks," but only to lure you in to sort of later gong you to death.
But yeah, that was beautiful. It was a really kind of beautiful philosophy, thinking about kind of the world as like a living entity. So. One of the things that someone asked us to do was to think of the hills as having kind of, like a consciousness. So you could obviously the environment lasts longer than animal species and so on and populations. So just imagine the entirety of the animal kingdom kind of growing and disappearing underneath you, and it's quite beautiful when you think about it. When you think about the hills as kind of watchers of other animals and so on, and the trees as whisperers, and it's quite pretty. It's quite a nice way of looking at the world.
Yeah, it's like a real life kind of approach to Mother Nature, isn't it?
Yeah.
I quite like that, because when one of the things that will annoy you as much as it annoys me is when theists explain that, like they ask you, well, why even remain, alive? Why not just kill yourself? There's no hope if you don't believe in God. And or they'll say, you can't deal with you can't deal with loss, and you can't deal with depression and things like that without God in your life. But if you see yourself as sort of part of a larger organism, and that you didn't exist before and you won't exist later, actually sort of thinking of yourself as something small, as a bit of a speck in the universe, it's actually fairly empowering, or it is to me, because I think that that's quite beautiful, as opposed to like, oh, I'm just a speck in the universe. It kind of like plays towards their solipsism, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love the idea that, we were all born in the guts of stars, and that eventually that's where we'll end up again.
Yeah, we're all stardust. Yeah,
we're all stardust. Yeah. I think it's really nice, and the thing of worrying about the afterlife and so on. There was a bit that Matt Dillahunty said that lots of people do worry about that, and they say, without Christianity, how do you what happens to your loved one after you die? But he said, actually, it's the other way around. Since I gave up Christianity, since I realised it wasn't for me something that had factual foundation, I don't have to worry anymore. I don't have to worry about my parents have worshipped the wrong God or burning everlasting in hell. I know that when they go, that's them gone, and that's them at peace. I don't have to worry about this kind of immortal coin flip. Where are you going to end up? I mean, we don't know everything. We know almost nothing about the world, and to say with certainty that you know where you're going to end up is kind of foolish, really. So it brought him quite a lot of that word.
I always lead back towards the famous Mark Twain quote where when asked, he says, well, I was dead for millennia before I came to existence, and I didn't suffer the slightest inconvenience.
Yeah.
So then after death, I understand why people would think, or why people would hope that there was an afterlife, but if it's not provable, it's just a hope, and it's fair enough. I'm not even saying that there isn't an afterlife. I'm just saying that I don't have a really good reason to believe that there is. Maybe there is. Maybe it's going to be great. Who knows?
Yeah, it might be. There's a really good book by David Eagleman called Some, and it explores 40 different options for an afterlife. Because obviously we're all brought up to think that it's heaven or hell, but that doesn't have to be it. There's my favourite one. You go into this kind of waiting room, and then you're asked, it's like a reincarnation idea. And it's like, so what would you like to go back to Earth as? And he's like, oh, do I get another go? It's like, yeah, you can choose what you want. And he goes, God, well, being a human was, God, that was a bit hard work, wasn't it? Having to get a job and all this kind of sort of family life and, a mortgage, that's called kind of tricky. I wonder what it'd be like just to be a horse. Maybe I'll be a horse. They don't do anything. They just eat grass and they just wander around and they have I'm going to be a horse. So they go, okay. And then he starts becoming a horse, so his legs turn almost like the bit from Pinocchio where he gets turned into the donkey, just like one bit at a time. Was it that?
Yeah. I was thinking werewolf in London, but we'll go with your idea.
All right. So yeah, he's slowly turning, and then the last thing to change is obviously his kind of like consciousness about it. And just before he turns completely into a horse, he just goes, "Fuck! If I come back again, I can only ever be a horse." Because I'm not going to have a cognition to go, actually, I'd quite like to be a human again. I'm only and then he's a horse forever after, on an endless cycle of being a horse. I quite like that.
Yeah, that's quite good. Yeah.
And there's other ones. Actually, another really good one that you wake up and you're in like a kind of suburban village after you've died, and a really kind of the really really awful kind of suburban. Everyone's mowing the lawn all the time to make it look pretty. And the person gets called up and he goes to speak to God. And he said, "Oh, do you know what? I had such a bad life. I can't believe I'm in heaven." He goes, "Heaven? Suburban life is hell, my friend. This is hell." I quite like that as well.
Yeah. If you were doing the going back as anything that you like, what would you go back as?
Ooh.
Not a horse, I'm guessing.
No, not a horse.
Maybe a horse.
I really dislike horses. They are very stupid creatures.
I just preempting the audible gasp that, well, we won't be able to hear it, but I'm sure there's a few listeners that just went no
or nay.
Nay.
Yeah. They are stupid creatures. Everything terrifies them. They just run at stuff and then they go, it's a bush, And then they get really, and then they do it again. They turn around. There's another bush, and it's a bush. You've seen one before. You've seen one 1,000 times.
Well,
Stop being terrified of it.
I've only ever actually ridden on a horse properly once, and I ride a motorcycle. So when I was on the horse and I was approaching,
you hear that, ladies?
You hear that? When I was approaching a gap, I genuinely cringed because I wasn't too sure like how to guide this horse properly because I'd only been on it for maybe like 20 minutes, and as it approached the gap. And I sort of freeze because I was thinking, oh, how do I make this thing stop? Because if I wasn't in a bike, I'd just fire into the ditch. And the horse just sort of jumped over the gap, and I was like, oh yeah, like it's got its own brain, hasn't it? Like it's got eyes. It can think what it's doing. I assumed that I was just still on like this marauding machine, but it was just a really peculiar experience. It knew not to break its own legs.
I read I'm reading a book at the moment called The Happy Hypothesis, and that exact story, or something very, very close to it, was in the first chapter. That's remarkable. Did you write it?
No, I think that's just divine intervention bringing us together.
Mr. Watchtower, you did. Excellent.
Yeah. Well done. I must have done that when I was unconscious at the time, maybe.
You've been sleep noveling again.
I'd love to do that. I'd love to see what my subconscious wrote down, and then I could read it in the morning like some kind of fucked up diary.
Mine would just be puns and cock gags.
But what do you mean by cock gags?
You don't want to know.
Okay, so next question. Tell us your most disconcerting experience. When did you have your back against the wall freaking out? Was there a time you needed to bolt?
Yeah. Yeah. But this is to do with my own ignorance, and this was, right, God, it was heartbreaking. This was before I did Islam. This was probably 2 or 3 months in. And like I said earlier, that with nothing happening in the place I live, this was apparently quite interesting. So it went in the newspaper. And what happened was I told the newspaper categorically, don't print my name, don't print where I work, and don't print where I live. So obviously it starts with all those 3 facts about me. I just think, where's the line? What can I do about this? Like, I've got a friend who's a journalist, and I've said that to him, and he just said, they shouldn't have promised you that. If someone tells me that, I won't even run the story. He just said, that's the only thing people are interested about in local news. So yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so what happened was I was at work, and there's a few different sites, and I got a phone call from the different site from reception just saying, hi there, I have a couple of people here who are looking for you. They said they read the article. I went, right, okay, right. And she said they've been here for an hour. I'd gone in late that day. I can't remember why, something. Said that they've been here about an hour, so they'd waited for an hour, and they went on the phone, and they were what I would deem an accent relative to Islam. Mm-hmm. And they just said, hi there, we're here to... I'm not going to do the accent. Do the Stephen Hawking voice again for this. Okay. Hi there. We just really wanted to come and see you. I read your article. Where are you? So I went, fuck. I'm at a different site. And he went, okay, we'll come and find you. And then just put the phone down. And I just thought... I put everything in my head knows that nothing is going to happen. Absolutely nothing is going to happen, obviously. But then there's all the thing going around of, the stories you read of hands being cut off in Saudi Arabia and all these nonsense kind of ideas. And so for the next half an hour, I was just walking back and forth. And eventually they got to the reception, and I just thought, well, they phoned me, and I just said, keep them there. The security there, you see, so keep them there. They'll look after me. So I went and met them there. And obviously they were the nicest people. They'd read about it. And they wanted to help. So they bought a few books. They bought me their phone number as well, and just said, if you've got any questions, if you need any help during your time in Islam, then we'll be really, really happy to help with that. They were just the nicest people. I've still got those books. I gave them an email. We chatted a bit. Obviously that's, but all the kind of things go through your head. Yeah. The worst bit, and the bit I feel genuinely horrible about, is they got their stuff out of a backpack, and honestly, my heart stopped. Oh, for fuck's sake!
Wow, that's more interesting than I've got time to go into, really. But it's got a lot to it, hasn't it? We could just do a whole podcast just about that. You know things like preconceived notions and prejudices and things like that. But I mean, it worked out nice. But it could have been two other people from a slightly different sect or a slightly more fundamental perspective who just wanted to meet you and tear a shred off you. But yeah, it worked out okay, didn't it?
It worked out pretty nicely. Yeah, that's. Yeah,
it doesn't always happen that the nicer variety are like proactive. It's usually the ones that are looking for a fight that would actually come and find you.
Absolutely, but I didn't get any of that. That's one of the most surprising things. I genuinely thought, and so did Mrs. T as well, that I was going to get some kind of backlash. I was going to get some kind of anger or hatred or hate mail, especially since they printed where I worked and my address.
Yeah, not exactly, nobody knocked on your door.
Easily.
Or at least left a flaming shit on your doorstep.
I think that's in Corinthians, isn't it?
Yeah, Leviticus, must be.
So, yeah, I thought, but I honestly, I just met the nicest, kindest people. The nicest, kindest people. The worst I got was from Judaism, when the two closest synagogues I could find were a 2.5 hour round trip. Obviously, Judaism was really dying out, so that was quite an effort. So to make sure it was still going, I thought I'd email and I thought I'd make sure that they knew what was happening. And she said that I can come if I like, but she finds the whole project fanciful. That's honestly the worst criticism I got throughout the whole thing.
Fanciful. That almost seems like it's luxurious or something. Like oh, fancy. Like you're spoiling yourself by having to go at loads of religions.
Yeah, she's right though. She's right.
Wow.
I couldn't argue. But she turned out to be lovely, really. I think she was just a bit confused by the whole thing.
Yeah, impressive.
Yeah.
Right. Let's move on. Okay. So I was just going to say actually, just to clarify, when the people that came looking for you had read the thing in the newspaper, was that just like a general story on what it was that you were doing for the year and why?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
They didn't link anything I'd written, which was nice.
Good.
Because I know I've changed quite a lot, like from where I was at the start. When I said I was quite a vocal atheist for 5 years, that was definitely a hangover in the first 3-4 months of what I'd written. So if they'd read any of that, they would have been maybe a bit upset. Who knows? Yeah.
I'm guessing you're finding the approach of sort of not necessarily not respect for the ideas, but respect for the people. I'm sure you're finding that much better because that seems to be a bit of a through, what would you call it? It seems to be sort of a conversation that I hear over and over, whether or not you should bludgeon them with all of the facts that negate everything that they think, or should you just have a sort of conversation and realise that they're just human beings and they might have a few wrong ideas and ask them for the evidence and things like that. You must have had that approach now where, because you've had to be, in the lion's den, because you've had to be with them, you can't sort of just go in and just go, well, you're all wrong. Like that you can't be an ardent sort of strident atheist, because you need to turn up and figure it out. So you're more about asking questions then, aren't you, as opposed to telling them how it is? Yeah,
absolutely. I don't see what that approach does anymore. I see it so often, and I don't know if it's whether I'm bored of it or whether it's all the ideas I don't. I mean, there's still a few accounts that do it that I still really like God the Spell Checker I still find really entertaining.
Yeah.
But there's so many people who just kind of look on Twitter for someone who says God or prayer and then just retweet it with prayer isn't real and then #think, as if that's interesting or useful or important.
Yeah.
There's so many different conversations. One of the most influential people I came across was a old podcast now called No Godcast, and they had a philosopher, Stephen something. You can tell he's influential because I can't remember his fucking name. But Stephen something, he said that the argument isn't between theism and atheism or any branch of theism. It's about kind of liberal ideas against totalitarian ideas. And totalitarian ideas are seen in religion, but they're also seen in people with non-belief. So one of the problems that you get is when you kind of marginalise and ridicule those with liberal ideas is you kind of almost push them towards those that share a totalitarian idea. So that's one of the problems I find with things like Draw Muhammad Day. Whereas I understand why it started, and I understand why it was so important that the day it was done, over the Danish newspaper and so on. I completely understand why that was such an important movement. To redo it every year like some kind of festive holiday is I don't know what it achieves anymore. It's surely that marginalises all the people that we're supposed to be saying. The argument I find really bizarre. You say to all the moderate Muslims, you should be saying that what those fanatical Muslims are doing is wrong, and yet we tarnish their whole religion as a joke and as evil, and expect them to play nicely. I don't understand how that works. Such a better idea is to reach out to those moderate Muslims. A friend of mine, after the Pakistan attacks in the school, emailed his mosque and said, "What can I do to help?" I think that's absolutely what everyone should be doing. If you're really interested in building a better civilization and building a better society, a more cohesive society, then reach out to those moderates, talk to those moderates, and see what you can do to help. Don't then ostracize everyone and expect it to all go well.
Yeah, that seems to be that's what's been happening with when people get Sam Harris wrong about everything that he says. For some reason, he's like one of the most misrepresented people in the universe. A lot of people say, "Oh, Sam Harris, he wants all Islam to be destroyed, and he hates Muslims." But like what he's saying is like, Islam in its entirety has very bad, very dangerous ideas, as do many other religions.
Absolutely.
So he advocates sort of reaching out to those moderates because they're the only ones that can make the reparations. It doesn't mean that their God is any more real or that the religion is any more valid. It just simply means that if we can drag like Islam into the present day, and the majority of Islam was like the Church of England, there'd be a lot less worth dying for them. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I agree with that completely. Yeah, I like Sam. He's all right. He's all right by me.
Yeah, me too.
And he hates CJ Whirleman, which is always fun.
Yeah. I think I've yet to disagree with Sam Harris about pretty much anything. I've never really come across anything that is that he's said that I'm not really happy with. It's okay to have disagreements, and I do with most of the the sort of quote famous atheists. But I don't think I've ever really disagreed with him about anything. No,
and I think he delivers it well. One of the reasons I love Hitchens so well is just his delivery and his eloquence. He had just a gift of phrase that makes... He could say anything. He could say he was ripping my mum's face off, and I would agree with him and like it because he would say it in a brilliant way. I don't know if that's the greatest example.
I've got the God Is Not Great book, but I've got it on audio on my mobile phone, so every now and then I listen to it while I'm walking somewhere, and he actually reads it, so it's like with his kind of like resonating tone, so get that. Also, if you haven't seen it, have you ever seen Christopher Hitchens do stand-up?
Yes. It's so bad.
If you're listening, get on YouTube and watch Christopher Hitchens does stand up, because there's a couple of jokes that are just brilliant, but they're even better because they're said by him.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them funny. Yeah.
I think he just leaves as well after the audience not really laughing. It's just with his kind of feeling of self-worth. He doesn't matter. He doesn't care. He has no interest in what anybody ever says. He just thought, I'll go and do some stand-up. No good laugh. Doesn't matter. I'm still Christopher Hitchens. And then he leaves.
Have you ever seen, do you like Stewart Lee? Have you ever seen him?
I love Stewart Lee, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I thought you would. You've got that kind of mentality. I loved it when he said... I've got his books as well, and he says the only thing worse than nobody clapping is one person clapping. Like, if you've just got one person clapping, that's like if you're going to alienate everybody, it has to be everyone. If one person's clapping, that ruins the joke.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Did you see his joke on Islam?
Yeah. I've seen pretty much everything he's done. But was it the when he says time to ridicule a Muslim now, and he picks? Are you on about the one? He said, I can't remember what he says, but it's quite eloquent, and he says it very fast. And he says that's the joke about Islam. That's the kind of jokes that you say you want. Yeah. But then when you say you want jokes about Islam, you say not jokes like that, Stu. When we said make jokes on Islam, we said we want you to make fun of their hats.
Yeah, that's the one. Do you know what that was? That was the best joke about Muslims that you will ever hear.
Yeah, so check that out, listeners, yeah?
Genius.
Shall we move on?
Go on then.
Okay.
I can't remember what even my point was, but yeah, go on.
Right, okay. Right, so you've done all these religions, yeah? Mm-hmm. Besides the very sort of specific things that people go through in their day-to-day lives with their religious practices, what do you feel like you've learnt about religion in its entirety, like because of the journey? What happened before you set off on the journey and when you fell out the other side?
The main thing was the people. I mean, I can't, like, one of the criticisms at the start was I cannot understand religion fully because I don't have faith in it, and I completely agree with that. I can't, but what I can do is I can talk to people and see exactly what their faith means to them. And do you know what? The more you investigate, the more religion you go across, you realise that everyone is just exactly the same. We have the same input, the same ideas, the same fears, the same misunderstandings, the same understandings, and so it's right back to where I was a second ago. Is, you know, we're all on the same page, and so ostracizing people for belief that you don't quite believe about, you just completely negate everything else that you have in common with them, and you don't achieve anything by that. I mean, of course, there are fanatics, and they're not people I spoke to. You know, being in white middle class England means you don't really meet many fanatics. But the people were brilliant. Absolutely warm, inviting, exactly like anyone else would be. Some of them knew exactly where I was coming from, and that didn't stop them in any way being nice. I thought it might do. Definitely the Jehovah's Witness religion. I felt I had to kind of be honest with them from the start, and they were. If anything, it made them warmer. It made them nicer. And I've had some bad experiences with Jehovah's Witnesses in the past, as probably many people have. You probably more than most.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that's going to bleed into my next question, because I was going to ask you about the fact that you tried to be a Jehovah's Witness. That will interest me, and obviously quite a few people that listen to this, because they're drawn to it because of the name of the show and stuff. So I was going to say, is there anything that I can clear up, or any kind of experience you want to share with your time as a Jehovah's Witness?
Well, I got told.
Obviously, they're very approachable and very warm. They're welcoming, because that's how they lure you in. But still,
I nearly won. I've never come across. Do you know what? I've read the Bible a couple of times, and I've read books. There was one by Isaac Asimov, and it's a guide to the Bible, and it's massive. And I read that, and I thought I understood all the history and that kind of stuff. And you go in talking to Jehovah's Witness, and I asked if I could go door knocking with them, and unfortunately, they said no. Because honestly, they said if people know who you are, it will give them the wrong idea of why we're there. And I go, right, I'm not a celebrity. People won't know me. I wasn't going to say anything. I was just going to watch. Really, what I wanted to see was how many people told you to fuck off. It was really what I was interested in doing. If you knock on 500 doors, how many do you expect to kind of communicate with? But anyway, they said we can't let you do that. But what we can do is come round and knock on your door. So I went, right, okay, that sounds all right. So they came about 3 or 4 times, and we had Bible study, and I thought, I'm so prepared. Everything they say, I'm going to trip them up on, and no, I got made to look like a right idiot. Everything I said, they had a scriptural answer for. So well read. So well read in the Bible. I almost started going, maybe this is right. maybe it all does make sense. Yeah. And then you go, actually, no. But yeah,
I think we've I've been through this with the podcast before, with Norris, who's like a former Catholic, and the clearest distinction that I can see between a cult and a religion is that most religions will allow you to be a part of them pretty much irrespective of what you do, whereas a cult, they're very very particular about the things that you have to do, the things that you're allowed to do. And I don't think I think that's one of the things that people don't realize about Jehovah's Witnesses, is that they are literally well versed. They may be completely wrong, but that doesn't mean that they don't know their Bible.
No, they know it.
And it's like because it is very cultish. It's actually like a complete lifestyle. They go to like 3 meetings a week. They go out on field service at least once a week, and then in between that is Bible study. So they say, people think that they're just kind of like random Christians that think they know it all, but they do genuinely look into it like a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's their life. It's their actual life. I mean, the sacrifice that people made, the person who came round, I was asking what he did, and it turns out he used to be a lawyer who earned pretty well. He was going, spent the first 20 years as a lawyer, earned well, had big cars, big house, but that wasn't for me. So I sold everything, got a modest house, and opened my own window cleaning business so I could go door to door and meet people, so I could have my Bible in one hand and a sponge in the other.
This plays right into my hands for my other co-host, Bonaventure, because I explained that many Jehovah's Witnesses are window cleaners, and she just said, no, I reject that, because she thinks that she thinks that it's just a strange kind of like, she's like, what does that even mean that most Jehovah's Witnesses are window cleaners? And I said, well, not most, but it's not unusual for them to be window cleaners, because it's like a perfect job for them, because they can get up early, they can earn the money in the first 3 or 4 hours of the day, getting up early, and then they're ready. Then they can hit the ministry. They can get the suits, they can get their suit and tie on and go around for Bible studies with people and stuff. They've got the rest of the day to themselves. So it is kind of like, when I was younger, I knew like maybe 7 or 8 people that were like in one congregation that were all window cleaners, and they kind of like had like a bit of a Jehovah's Witness window cleaning business. I even helped them out on a few summers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, they've got that sorted out. But yeah, I think there's someone on Twitter, Secular Lad, who used to be a Jehovah's Witness. He has his own window cleaning business as well, I think.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, it's just it just seems to be the way. It seems to be a good thing. But yeah, they were ever so lovely. So they came around. We had coffee, had biscuits, had a chat about the Bible for an hour and a half, 2 hours, that kind of stuff. They answered a few questions. The questions I was trying to get. And I was trying to work out why it was wrong as well, because they said it pretty accurately, and wonder if you can clear this up. But they told me how you can get to 1914, and I'd like to know why that isn't correct.
Explain what you're saying. What do you mean? How 1914 is like the beginning of the end days, or? Yeah,
that's right. How do you get to there from the Bible? So how is it? Because they say it's a prophecy. The start of 1914 it's perfectly said it's perfectly prophesied in the Bible. But then I've been told it's actually they've kind of misunderstood something, and it's not right.
I'm not too sure the specifics. Like, I mean, I haven't entered the Kingdom Hall since I was like 15, 16. Other than I went to an assembly one time a little later, just sort of check it out for a specific reason, but I won't go into that right now.
Okay. What a tantalising man you are.
Well,
Mr. Watchtower, you're a tease.
I will very briefly. I went just simply to watch my father get baptised, because he was baptised after I left. So I went at his request, and sort of regretted it afterwards, because it freaked me out.
Really?
Yeah. I could feel the previous congregation kind of like eyeing me up, like waiting to get the claws in me after the closing ceremony. So I quickly ran away.
Yeah, God, they do, don't they? They flock to you.
They do, yeah. I read your blog the other day about when that happened, and you rolled your sleeves up to reveal your Darwin tattoo. That's what reminded me to send you the cushion thing.
Yeah, I'm getting some free stuff out now for this.
Yeah, possibly. I could draw you something and send it through the post.
Adam Reeks did that. That's a proper podcast.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
He sends me stuff in the post.
I've heard good things. Actually, I Skyped with Adam Reeks and to discuss things about the podcast, so I thought I'd steal you off him.
I think most people have done that.
Yeah.
I've been on quite a few podcasts. I think he found me, and then others copied when they realised I could string a sentence together. Just about.
Well done you.
Thank you. I've got that on my CV.
Okay, so the 1914 thing, I'm not too sure exactly where it comes from, but there's the various nations rising against nation, which I never really understood, because nations always rise against nations. That's been a part of human civilizations, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And I know that in the early days they did do very, very specific predictions that were then revised, because it's quite a young religion. We were talking like 1800s.
How do you revise predictions?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a prediction then.
It's like right, this is the prediction, and then when nothing happens, they consult the Bible, and then they decide, it must mean this and it must mean that. This has to happen before this happens, so now we can calculate it to this. And they kept going. So then when 1914 happened, it was like Armageddon's beginning. But then, one of the wars ended, the next one kicked off.
Then a few more.
yeah. So they decided that like the turn of the century, sort of 1914-ish, was like the beginning of the last days. So we are now living in the last days. And if you check out online, I think it's in the 60s, maybe 61, 62. There's people have scanned in watchtowers from the 60s that explain specific things, and one of them is encouraging their youth. Bearing in mind this is early 60s, encouraging Jehovah's Witness youth to not really bother going to college because you'll never be able to fulfill a career because we are in the last days. And they can kind of say what they want, but it's difficult to think that what the governing body, like the leaders of Jehovah's Witnesses, it's difficult to believe that what the governing body are saying now is true if the governing body back then decided we were in the last days. Like, there's no point getting a career because if you're a teenager in the early 60s, you'll never fulfill a career. And we're talking about baby boomers that are all practically retired now.
Yeah. Don't even put socks on. No point. There's no point. Don't even get dressed.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
Just sit in a dark room. Yeah. Wait for it to end.
So as much as Jehovah's Witnesses have that sort of that sincere smile that's a bit eerie, a lot like Mormons, they're essentially looking forward to the apocalypse. Like their whole existence is preparing for the last day.
Yeah, they can't wait, can they? Cannot wait.
No. That brings us back to Sam Harris when he says, if there was a sizable mushroom cloud over like a city like New York, the silver lining to many theists would be, well, then this is if this is happening now, the nukes are landing. This is the apocalypse. Thank goodness, or rather, thank God. Yeah.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a sizable number of humans on the earth that would be like, oh, end of the world. Oh, right, I'm getting ready for the rapture. Right. Okay. So, based on all of your experiences, rumor has it you're writing a book. Is that a real life thing?
Yeah. Really bad at stuff. I'm kind of get interested by other things and move on. But yeah, I've written bits, and I think the problem is, I always in my head I know what it's going to be, and then I start writing it, and then something changes, and I want to write it completely differently. So it might be that this is just not the best thing that's ever done, and I just get on with it and get it finished, and then I move on to something different.
Right.
I don't know, when I first started writing it, because the blog was going to pretty much make up, I look back then and look back at the writing and just think, God, I was a dick. And then 6 months in, I revised it again, and then a year on from that, I was still a dick back then.
Still a dick.
And I'm still learning. I'm still working stuff out. In definitely my kind of demeanor and kind of approach to the whole thing. And I find out new stuff all the time as well. New and exciting things. And almost, I think really, when I first started it, it was going to be kind of another kind of book that was heavily leaned towards the good things about atheism. So it was going to be, this is what religious people think. Ha ha ha, isn't it really good that I'm an atheist? And now I think I'm almost completely the other way around now. I spend most of my time kind of like debating atheists online. I don't know what it is about it, but I think I don't really notice stuff that theists say. Of course, I mean, there's always people who just put, all atheists are going to hell. I just think, well, that's stupid. It's not really worth my comment. But there's people like a certain Marvel character who put on that all religious people are brainwashed, and that seems more worthy of my time because it's demonstrably false, and two, I think it's quite insulting. I find that I think it's because I'm sticking up for the people that were so nice to me for a year. I feel like almost like a champion of their, and I'm not, again, like you say, I have no respect for their beliefs. I don't believe in anything like that, but I believe in them as people. I believe that they're well-meaning, they're warm, and they're just trying to make sense of this world. And what is the point? What's the point of saying, oh, they're all brainwashed, all religious people are stupid, or religies is the technical term, or, religitard? Just think, fucking hell,
Yeah, I think that's that's why your book, should you ever finish it.
All right, who are you, my publisher? Jesus,
I'll give you a fat advance. You can't see me, but I'm pretending I'm wiggling a cigar in my fingers while I say that.
Yeah, if someone gave me some money to do it, I'd bloody well do it. But no one has yet.
Yeah, look, if you were to finish the book and people were to read it, I think it's a good perspective because you have put so many human faces to those religions, they're not as alien. And if all of the religions out there are alien, you can be an atheist, but that doesn't make you a free thinker. You can be an atheist and still thinking that every Muslim is a Pakistani. It doesn't
like
mean that. It doesn't mean that you suddenly like develop some kind of higher level of thought.
No, just
like Matt Dillahunty says, when his IQ didn't go up when he became an atheist.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't get smarter. He just decided to believe as many true things as possible and as few false things as possible. So he wanted to know what evidence there was for everything that he already thought. His IQ didn't go up. He didn't become smarter. He just figured out what was reality.
It might have become more knowledgeable in certain areas. Absolutely, because that kind of idea of I want to believe in as many true things as possible is that does take you on an idea on a journey to gather as much knowledge as possible. But yeah, he doesn't get smarter because of that. And my favourite thing is how all atheists decide that they're now experts on evolutionary biology. And but my favourite thing is, I see this so many times in timeline, they'll start with a sentence and then they'll get a question from a theist and they have no idea about the answer. And they just go, oh, you don't know about evolution, you're stupid. It's like, you don't have an answer for it. Just say you don't know. That's fine. You don't have to pretend that you're a PhD student in evolutionary biology. You don't have to pretend you're Richard Dawkins to say that evolution is true, but don't pretend that they're an idiot because they don't know about it when you don't either. What you've done is you've read what the definition of evolution is. You know that it's both a theory and a fact, and that's where you think it should stop. That's just not the case at all. So that's one of my favourite things, and I used to because I genuinely wanted people to understand it. And I'm doing a degree at the moment in evolutionary biology because I didn't want to be that person that didn't not know about it. So I now step in and try and just give a little bit more information to what the atheist was trying to give in the time. There's one person who just said, okay, so what's the relation between a human being and a rat? What's a common ancestor? And this person going, oh, you're so stupid. Of course we've got a common ancestor. So, no, what is it? What? So I went in and I gave him a study on it and I showed like how you work that kind of stuff out and what we imagine it would have looked like. And the guy just went, thanks very much for that. That was really interesting. I'll have a read on it. That's all he wanted. He wasn't being an arsehole. He just said, I'm actually quite interested in how we're related to rat. I don't know if he had a pet rat or he'd once seen a rat and he wondered, I wonder where I'm related to that or something like that. But most people are just genuinely curious. And if you don't sound so arrogant about it and you just, either say, I don't know that, but that doesn't mean that evolutionary biology isn't, it didn't occur. It's just something I don't know. But this is how you might want to find out. Conversation will go so much easier. It's exactly like you said. Being an atheist doesn't make you a free thinker. It doesn't make you knowledgeable on anything. And I'm not knowledgeable on anything at all. I can just say a few puns. That's about it. But I'm all right with that.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think it's more important to be a skeptic and a free thinker. And I've explained to quite a few people that I am an atheist, but I mean I do define myself as an atheist if needs be, but being an atheist doesn't make me anything else. Like, I understand that my atheism is just based on a proposition of God. It's got nothing to do with anything else.
No.
So me being an atheist is a byproduct of me being a skeptic. Being skeptical and being a free thinker is completely different to being an atheist.
Of course it is, yeah.
I think the more people realise that, the more we can think about actual real life ideas and we can be skeptical. And that leads back to what we were saying before about, instead of thinking about people's skin colour or their religious affiliation, if you understand that we're dealing with ideologies, we can be skeptical about what people think, but we can relate with what we all have in common.
Yeah.
That's gonna get us further, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a great thing when I read about rules of argument and stuff like that. When I said I was a vocal atheist, I was one of those people that would buy books on logic and rules of argument and stuff. I was such a prick, honestly. But it's brilliant. One of the best things you can do in argument is find out what your commonalities are and move on from there. Rather than focusing on the disagreements, you instantly put everyone on the back foot. But if you start by saying, well, we both think this, so how do you get to where you're at? Because this is how I get to where I'm at, and therefore you've got a conversation rather than just prayer isn't real thing, like some big Australian accounts I could maybe mention.
Yeah. I tweeted out a YouTube video that I watched last night that was like an animation of a TED talk, like for educational purposes, and a guy on that had like an interesting thing where he said he's decided to call himself agnostic, which to him means that he refuses to be drawn on the question of God unless you lay out exactly what you mean by God, because he doesn't want to go through the arguments of, I think that kind of makes a lot of sense. Instead of just like arguing against people randomly and attempting to sort of have a go at people, if they define their terms and they want to present what their version of the God is, you can sort of get involved then, because then you're both on a level playing field and you're talking about an idea, not about if you're a Christian, you're a lunatic.
Yeah, exactly. I think Qualia Soup on YouTube, have you ever come across him? Yeah, he put out the same thing and why he was an atheist, and it's brilliant. I love that channel. It's an amazing channel.
Wasn't Qualia Soup the guy that did the deconversion story that lasted like quite a lot of episodes, wasn't it?
I think that was Theremin Trees. That's his brother.
Oh right, yeah, okay, yeah.
I like him as well. He's a friendly chap.
I watched those. That's going quite a way back, that, isn't it?
Yeah, that was quite a while ago. But they were my favourite channels for a few weeks actually. Used to watch him all the time. But yeah, he did exactly the same thing. It's like me saying that I don't believe in God really doesn't mean anything more than saying you do believe in God until you tell me exactly what you mean. I can't tell you if I believe in that or not. Which is probably quite a nice standpoint.
It's a waste of intellectual energy as well. If you want to argue these points and you say, well, God doesn't exist, but you don't know what their terms are for God. Like agnostic, I think is probably a good approach, because there's no point running into an argument saying you're an atheist until you know what you're being atheistic about. Like throw the God proposition at me and I'll tell you whether or not I'm an atheist towards it.
Yeah, I really like that. That's a good position to be in.
It saves yourself a lot of hassle. I think it does these days anyway.
Yeah, well, I argue with atheists more now. So.
Yeah. Well, I think you've looked into religions enough to sort of have a good idea of. I think you'd be a lot like when Christopher Hitchens said he now knows enough about all religions to know that he would be an apostate or a heathen or whatever they want to call him, an infidel, at all times and in all places. So there's not much point in him trying to see which one he fits into. He's just going to understand that that's his position, and he's going to move on and sort of fight the other battles.
Yeah, I like that.
Makes sense. Yeah,
I liked everything that man said.
I know. I was retweeting is it Mama Atheist or Godless Mom? One of those two.
Yeah.
I retweeted I did a Hitch sort of tribute last year when it had been 2 years since his death. So I'm just going to keep retweeting that out every year, because I've got a little video with it from the Thinking Atheist and stuff.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I miss him.
Yeah.
But I've got his audible voice in my phone for whenever I'm having a little walk.
I'll have to get that. I loved his debate with his brother.
Yes,
it was amazing. Brilliant.
I exchanged a few tweets a while back with his brother.
Did you really?
It was on. It was on. What was it? The Big Question.
Yeah.
And last year I think it was, and I mentioned. I think I said something quite flippant. It was. You know the famous quote that says the Beatles are dying in the wrong order.
Yeah.
So I said that about the Hitchenses.
Fucking hell.
But to be fair, he is a contemptible man. I'm not saying I wish death. I'm just not saying I wish death upon him, but I would much rather Christopher be here.
Yeah, God. I'd wish anyone was here instead. I'd wish a brick was here instead of.
He was saying strange things like he said you'll associate with this. We're working in a college. He said that sex education for youth in England is nothing but a reason for them to be promiscuous, and that's it. As if we were throwing them together in a classroom to have sex.
Yeah.
And it's just it's just to get a reaction. You can see the glint in his eye. Like he's more intelligent than that. He knows that that's not a fact.
No,
but
he
wants
does know
to
that.
say it because that's what pays his bills. it was just a bit irritating. So I put out a tweet and somebody said, watch it, Peter Hitchens is known to look for his name on Twitter. So he came back to me and he's like, I haven't even solicited your support and all that. It was pretty funny because I just thought, yes, Peter Hitchens. So I tweeted him a couple of times. I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was just a bit surreal to be like, oh, where's Christopher when you need him?
Yeah, he's just like a right-wing version of Russell Brand, isn't he? Just just like a genius troll.
Yeah, well, Russell Brand was actually on a show with him. Did you see that? He said he said he made him feel uncomfortable because he said he needs a cuddle or something. He says I'm going to come right over there and kiss you on the mouth. I liked it. He freaks me out, does Peter Hitchens, because he's kind of like, he reminds me of a Thunderbird. He just he's like a Thunderbird. Yeah, and like, with the nose and the sort of glazed blue eyes, he's like the Thunderbird's dad that just never quite gets on the show because he's an irritating bastard.
Yeah, he's a weird human being. Looks weird, speaks weirdly. I just loved how personally aggravated he got during the debate with Hitchens, especially when he said that my brother's just complaining that my publications are more widely read. And he came back and just goes, no matter how widely read, I'm glad they're not printed there. And then puts his nose up, and I think, fuck's sake.
Yeah. It's pretty funny though, because it was like it was a more intellectual version of just like two brothers punching each other in the street.
It was brilliant.
Because I have a brother and he's only a year older than me, so it's the equivalent of us doing that when we're young, but just battering each other with words, which I guess is the right way to do it, isn't it? If you're going to have a conversation about religion, and I think they were talking about Iraq at some point, weren't they?
Yeah.
But if you're going to have a debate, then do it with words. Don't punch each other like little brothers.
That's the thing. I mean, I remember when the reason I got interested in politics was the kind of Iraq War, and I was definitely I'm against this completely without really knowing anything about, and then. That kind of floundered and so on, and then I got interested in religion and philosophy, and so when I came across Hitchens, and I loved everything. I just loved how he delivered everything, and then he started saying he agreed with the Iraq War, and do you know what? Within 2 minutes, I agreed with it, just because he said it. And now I don't know what to think. Just like that'll make sense.
No, yeah, he was a real life Jedi, which is good because like now he's dead. He's obviously at one with the Force.
It's true, yeah. He's true.
Right, let's wrap this up, shall we? Because I don't want to keep you any longer. Well, I don't want to keep myself any longer, to be fair, because for every minute that goes by, it's going to take me 10 minutes editing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Right, okay. So I'm going to say goodbye to you, and I'll...
If we said anything interesting, I can't remember. Have we got anything usable?
I don't know, but what I'll do is I won't look at it, and then I'll come back to it in a couple of days when I've got like a fresh head, and I'll start editing it then.
Do you change your head daily? What do you mean with a fresh head?
Fresh head. Yeah, well, once I've heard myself say it, I like to walk away from it so I don't remember what I said or what you said.
Okay.
What's weird is when you're talking sometimes, because I've heard you on other podcasts, you're kind of talking and I haven't said anything for a couple of minutes, and I just think I'm listening to a podcast, and I think, oh, I'll have to think of something. Have I got another question? Or like, because I've kind of switched off thinking that I'm just listening to you on a podcast and someone else is going to interrupt you.
I'm just going, can I press pause? This is shocking.
I'm just going to make a brew. Yeah, okay, so thanks for being on the show.
No, it's a pleasure.
I'm going to cut away from you right now and go back to me and my co-host, and we'll discuss, okay?
Okay.
So say goodbye to the fans.
Oh, goodbye, fans and air conditioners.
Loser. That's a really bad pun. Well done. Thanks.
Thank you.
So that was Religious Tourist.
It was
the very
what
first
a guy.
The very first ever guest. You're not a guest. You're just a co-host.
Wow.
I keep you up.
You're just a co-host. Praise it. High praise.
It's high praise. I just keep you around like furniture. Something to sit on.
Me
So anyway, I know it's going to have to be quick because we're already well over the hour. I don't think people like to listen to things.
For an hour.
I don't think people like to listen to things for longer than an hour, even if it is me and Religious Tourist.
I agree.
So this is Religious Tourist, the debrief. Debriefing.
Do I take my underwear off for this?
No, we're debriefing Religious Tourist.
Okay,
Keep your pants on.
What a guy. What a guy.
And like the outro music just comes in and you just go, what a guy. The end. Lightning. I mean, Sunday.
Debrief. What a guy.
Brief
enough?
That's what I think of Religious Tourist. Wonderful man.
What a guy. Yeah, he sounded like a great guy. What a guy.
Okay, I guess we'll just leave it at that. Hopefully next month we'll have Take That Darwin with us. And I'm scheduling
like
Jen
Mark
August.
Owen and Gary Barlow.
Yeah, Take That. Take That.
In Blackburn.
If you're American, I wonder if Americans know who Take That is.
I don't know.
Forget it. We don't have enough time to get into that. See you next month, Bonaventure.
Is that it?
Yeah. I'm just going to stop now.
Is that really?
Yeah.